And welcome to Politics 101. Good evening. Good evening to everyone who is joining us. Politics 101 on Thursday evening. Good to be back with you for another evening of education, learning, and mobilization. It's been the week after the weekend, Emancipation Weekend, and then we had the big opposition rally on Tuesday. And so we are getting back into normal rhythm. Welcome tonight. I'm going to be joined later on by Lincoln Lewis and Mark Benschop, who are going to be chatting with us about emancipation, the rally, and related issues. Welcome down to Politics 101. We talk here about everything that has to do with the welfare of our country. We tend to come from the perspective of the opposition, in the sense that if we have a leaning, we're leaning in that direction politically. But nevertheless, everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome. We're going to have a full house tonight as we did last night. And of course, tonight, as I said, Lincoln Lewis and Mark Benschop are going to be joining us. There is still talk. There is still talk about what's happening the morning after the rally on Tuesday. The media are trying to figure out how many people were there. Stabrook News said 2,000. The Moraro Wave said 3,000. I think somebody said 4,000. They're trying to figure out how many people were there. For me, what was important was the energy that came with that rally. Welcome to Politics 101. Welcome those of you who are joining us from out in the Caribbean. Our Caribbean. If you're joining us from North America, in Toronto, Canada, hello to my brother Colin Burke, Colin Garnett, out there in Toronto. You're joining us from the United States of America. Little Guyana there in Brooklyn and Queens. If you're joining us from Boston, Connecticut, of course. Our friends there in Maryland, Washington, D.C. area, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. I notice Kenneth DeFlormont is joining us from there, from Maryland. Welcome down to Politics 101. Welcome. Those of us who are in Guyana, beautiful Guyana, whether you're on the east coast of the Moraro, where I am, the west coast, the west side, or you're in Georgetown, the East Bank, Linden, you're out there in the Quarantine, West Bobis, or if you're down the river, the East Bank of Bobis, or you're in the West Bank of Bobis, Blairmont, Itika. Welcome down to Politics of 101. If you're there in the hinterland, Region 9, Region 8, Region 7, Region 1, welcome. Bartica, if you're in the house, shout out. Let's hear you. And I noticed my brother Orin Newton, the man boom himself, watching from Buxton. fact, I just was out there. Today we lay to rest Duncan Seaforth, one of the Seaforth twins. The other one died some 16 years ago. And the other half, we laid him to rest today, the Seaforth brothers. I don't usually speak at funerals, but I paid a little tribute to Duncan. He and his brother, they were stalwarts of the WPA and the 1st of August movement. And of course, they were fixtures in our village, the twin boys, as we call them. I refer to them as an institution in our village. And then yesterday, of course, we laid to rest Floyd McRae, Bucky, relatively young man. May their souls rest in peace as they go back to their ancestors. All the Buxtonians in the house, good night. Good night. I see my brother Keith Branch out there in Pennsylvania. Welcome to Politics 101. Our guests tonight are going to be Lincoln Lewis and Mark Benschop. They're going to be here in a few minutes. So please share the link. I can't do like Shara does, but please share the link. And I'm glad that some of you are early. And please share the link. I noticed today they were carrying on about what happened at Buxton and what was said in Buxton on the weekend. You know, at Buxton, we had Simona Brooms and Nigel Hughes, and I also spoke. And then on Tuesday night, of course, at the rally, and Guyana Times and Kaito News, the columnists were figuring out what was said. One of the columnists said we were sending subliminal messages from Buxton. They went after me for saying, if we're not at the table, we're going to knock the feet off the table. They said it was subliminal message. And that African Guyanese are not going to knock no table down. And Guyana Times accused me of imitating Burnham because Burnham was at parade ground in 1962, and that Burnham gave a speech, and after the speech, people began to burn down Georgetown. So, but then they said, "Oh, nobody's going to bother with us. African Guyanese have moved on." They talk about subliminal message. The point is, they're saying that African Guyanese, our supporters are oppressed, but they're not going to do anything about their oppression. Never mind what Nigel Hughes said, never mind what Simona Broom said, never mind what David Hinds said, never mind what Norton said on Tuesday night. African Guyanese are not going to do anything. Ha! They feel that they have you all back on the plantation. You know, only slaves don't do anything, are not supposed to do anything about their oppression. Only people who you have under control, that you know for sure they're not going to do anything about their oppression. Those shameless people. That's what they're saying. in Kaitro News and the Guyana Times. Oh, black people not going to do anything. Black people not going to listen to them. The subliminal message, to use their term, is that they got to be where they want to be. They get black people where they want black people. So never mind what those leaders say. Black people are not going to do anything. They've psychoanalyzed us that we are brain dead. We can take oppression and do nothing. And that's the contempt those people have for black people. Do you all ever see me or hear me trying to psychoanalyze Indian people? Or to say Indian people not going to listen to their leaders? That's not my business. That's not my business. But every day they feel that they can decide for black people who their leaders are, who they must listen to, and what they're not going to do. But as I said the other night, we have a beautiful smile. We are a jovial people. We are not a violent people. But behind that nice look, there is something that is very determined about us. They've taken their ability to remain in government on our cowardice. That's what they're staking their plan to remain in power forever and forevermore on our cowardice. So they're going after those of us who are trying to rally our people to get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. They don't want that. They don't want to hear that. They don't want our people to hear that. Get up, stand up for your rights. Every time we try to get up, they say, you're being violent. Sit down back. And sometimes some of us comply. Peaceful protest. We don't mind you all protesting, but peaceful protest. What peaceful protest means is no protest. Because they're trying to say to you that if you protest, they're going to put the thugs in the protest. And the thugs will interfere with Indian people. And then they will say, it's you who in the protest interfere with Indian people. And then you sit down back. But I have news to them. I know for me, if they think they're driving you all back into the plantation, are you going to be at the gate to turn you all back? You're not going back on no plantation. Physically, economically, politically, mentally, you're not going back on no plantation. African Guyanese, if they're not at the table, they ain't gonna knock down no table. David ain't saying that if they're not at the table, they must knock down the table. Who are you talking to? African Guyanese, no, they're knocking down no table. What they mean is that African Guyanese will take the blows and sit down. They've determined that. Based on what they've seen in the last 2 years, they've come to the conclusion that Black people are ready to go back on the plantation, and they're not going to do anything about it. That's what they're writing up. The columnists, they're writing up in the Kaitro News and the Guyana Times. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics 101. David Hinds here. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good in this Emancipation Month. I'm feeling so inspired. I want them to listen to me every day, every night, and try to figure out what I'm saying. I know that you, our supporters, understand what I'm saying, because I'm speaking in a language that you understand. Say Black people like to speak in tongues. I'm speaking with the ancestors behind me. One of the problems we have in Guyana is that we don't understand each other. Black people live in their communities, Indian people live in their communities, Amerindians live in their communities, and generally we don't understand each other, and we don't often make the effort to understand each other. We often relate to each other based on stereotypes. So when people talk about hungry belly, black man, and so on, it's the stereotypes. They're relating to us based on stereotypes. You see, we don't want Irfan Ali to dance like me. We want him to dance like an Indian. He's an Indian. I want him to dance like an African. I always say, look, Diwali is not my business. Pagwe is not my business. That's Indian Guyanese culture. And I respect their culture. I respect them and their relationship to their culture and their religion. But I'm trying to go to the Diwali and operate as if it's my own. It's not mine. I have no relationship to it from a spiritual and cultural sense. We live together, meaning side by side, because that's how we live in Guyana. We live side by side. And I respect Indian culture. I respect Amerindian culture. I respect Portuguese culture. And I'm not going to try to make a fool of it. When that chap get up and singing brown skin girl, and he's making a mockery of black culture. I'm not saying that Indian people should not attend black functions where black culture is and so on. But if you don't know the thing, try to learn the thing. I know some black people are very good at dancing Indian dances and so on. And they do it very well. But generally, most of us are not adept at that. And so when that fella got up and singing Brown Skin Girl, that's the only song he know, black people song. What a shame. What a shame. What a shame. And then trying to dance like them bad boy. As though some or the other, that's all he know about African culture. Making a mockery. Making a mockery. You see, until we begin to teach the culture of our people in schools, our people are going to grow up not understanding, appreciating the culture of others. That is why that same banner, Lil Y, could have said that all of us came here looking for opportunity. Not knowing in his heart and in his mind that Black people did not come here looking for opportunity. Black people came here against their will. They came here in chains. And out of their struggle on that plantation, they created opportunities for others to come. It's a fact. Not David Hinds saying that. When they broke the chains of slavery, they made sure that others came. They came as indentured laborers, but they came as free people, free to practice their religion, free to keep their names, their ancestral names. And it was the struggle of the African on the plantation that made it possible for them to be free. So when Irfan Ali said, they came here looking for betterment, that betterment that our sisters and brothers came here looking for, the opportunities for that betterment were created by African. Give thanks to us, no man. Why are you trying to drive us back on the plantation? Why are you sitting up there and writing that if Black people are not at the table to share the oil, they're not going to knock the table down, they're going to accept it? That's what those damn fools are writing. That's what they're writing. I'm not calling the name because I don't want to desecrate our show. But imagine in 2022, you're going to write as an educated man that Black people, African Guyanese, ain't gonna knock down no table if they're not there. Because they're happy not being at the table. That's what you're insinuating. If this table belonged to all of we, and we are not at the table, and the leaders have said, if you're not at the table, knock the table down. And you are saying, nah, they ain't gonna knock the table down. Then what you mean? You mean they're happy not being at the table? And this is the nonsense, the disrespect for Black people that I am not going to let happen. Fight it. Fight it. You know, I would rather us be talking some other things. I didn't make race. I didn't make racism. Our people are the victims of racism. I read Karl Marx. I think in many respects I'm a student of Marxism. I'm a Marxist. I agree with the class analysis that part of the problem of human society has to do with social class, that there are rich people and poor people, and that the rich use their wealth to control the institutions in society. But I'll be a fool not to recognize that there's also a race analysis. C.L.R. James, who was a Marxist, said to ignore race is tragic. And he was a Marxist. You see, we Black Marxists, meaning Black people, Black scholars, Black thinkers, who accept the class analysis. We are victims of racism. And so we have to figure in race into our analysis. Karl Marx didn't pay attention to chattel slavery. Karl Marx based his analysis on European society, which were homogeneous society, white people. And so therefore, he analyzed those societies based on class, not race. They had no racial discrimination because they were all white. Karl Marx studied Guyana and the United States and Brazil and Trinidad and Tobago and the other society, you would have had to contend with the issue of race. So they want us to talk about class. They want us to talk about Marxism. They don't want us to talk about race. Clinton Brackett wasn't shot because of his social class. In fact, he's a working class boy like he's shooty. The Indians who were on the spot who shot him, they're working class Indians. You think they shoot Clinton Brackett because he's a working class boy? No. If class is what drives extrajudicial killing in Guyana, if your poverty, your state of poverty, your social standing as working class people is what drives extrajudicial killing, then poor Indians would have been dying extrajudicially. Poor Amerindians would be dying extrajudicially. Poor Portuguese would be dying extrajudicially. Why is it only poor Black people are dying extrajudicially and not poor people from other classes, from other ethnic groups, other races? It means that there is something about the color of the skin of those poor boys that makes them sitting ducks for extrajudicial killing. They're not being killed because of their class. They're being killed because of their race. Indian working class, Amerindian working class, Portuguese working class boys are more likely to live, less likely to die at the hands of the police than Black working class. I'm letting it bare. So the problem is not class. The problem is race. In America, a white boy is 12 times more likely to live till 16 than a Black boy, meaning that a Black boy is 12 times more likely to die before he's 16 than a white boy. Does it have anything to do with class? No, it has to do with race. And so I don't want them to tell me, David Hinds, you must concentrate on race, on class. I will concentrate on class when I see class. When rich Black people take advantage on poor Black people, I'm going to talk about class. You see, when they're sharing the money, they share the money to the rich people of one race. 80% of the wealth in this country are owned by Portuguese and East Indians, which means the rich East Indians and Portuguese. The rich East Indians and Portuguese. The rich East Indians and Portuguese own 80% of the wealth, which means the rich black people and rich Amerindian people own far less than rich. So even among the rich, race plays an important role. How many black people own mega businesses? And when you take into consideration that entrepreneurship was begun by Africans after they were emancipated, it means something was done along the way to underdevelop the black entrepreneurial class. And something was done along the way to develop the entrepreneurial class of other ethnic groups. Walter Rodney has that book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, in which he argues that there's a relationship between development and underdevelopment. That when Europeans went to Africa, Africa was far more developed than Europe. But then if you take away over 100 million people from a continent and sold them into slavery, you take away the human capital of a colony, you are underdeveloping that colony. So Africa wasn't underdeveloped because African people are lazy. African Guyanese were not underdeveloped because they're lazy. I don't have to tell you what they did during slavery, what they did after slavery. They bought lands nowhere else in the diaspora it happened. What lands? Created villages. And then what? The colonial government undermined, institutionally undermined those villages, undermined the village economy. And they empowered the Portuguese and later on the Indian Guyanese business class. And so when we talk about what is today, it is not because something is wrong with black people. And they're trying to do it now. They're trying to do it now. They're trying to keep us out of the business sector. They're trying to keep us out of decision making. They're trying to remove us from where power is. And they're saying, don't worry with the black leaders. Don't worry with the black leaders. Don't worry with the black leaders. Accept your fate. Accept your fate. They say, oh, the young black people, they've moved on. They've moved on. They mean they've moved on. They've moved on back to slavery. They've moved on. The young black people ain't worrying with y'all. They're at the street corner and they're smoking weed that is pushed by other people and other people who are employing them as pushers. So they ain't got time with David Hinds. They ain't got time with Aubrey Norton. They ain't broke them down no table. That is what they think of us. And the few, we gonna give them some small piece. And once we get them a little small piece, they're all right. They're gonna sit down in the plantation as house slaves with a small piece. That's their plan. That's their plan for us. I'm saying to them that you have something coming because we are not going to allow you to push our people back onto the plantation. I'm determined. I'm determined. I'm going to teach, I'm going to preach, and I'm going to stand up on the ground and push back. Push back. Push back. I ain't walking around and I'm not encouraging our people to walk around saying, oh, we are peaceful. Oh, we are peaceful. Oh, If you're walking around the place, making excuses, how peaceful you are, then you are buying in. You are buying in to the narrative that you are inherently violent. If black people were inherently violent, meaning violent was in our genes according to them, then given what they did to us for 200 and something years, we would be walking around this place killing everybody in sight if we were inherently violent. The fact that we are not doing that says that we are not inherently violent. Like every human being, any group of human beings, we are not inherently violent. And so we don't have to proclaim and affirm to the world, oh, we are peaceful. Oh, we are going to a peaceful protest. The people who create violence at protests are the people with the capacity for violence. Meaning it's the government, the state, using their goons, using the police. They have the capacity for violence. They are the ones who need to be preached to about nonviolence. They're the ones who need to be preached to about peaceful. I would like to go lecture to the police force on peaceful protests. So that's where they want us. So every time we talk about all things bad with black people, we have to push in. And Indian people are suffering. Of course, Indian people are suffering too. We know that. But we don't have to water down our struggles. If you're crying for your own craft, cry for your own calf. The different ethnic groups in Guyana experience poverty differently. When Kidaki went to Strathspey, and the people with their placards, they said the road bad. When they see Kidaki, what they do? I mean, I want you, to film away. They follow up the placard, and the government will look after me. And the government when they look after them the next day. They experience it differently because it's their government. They vote for that government. Of course, the government need to give them more than couple roads repair. You see, the PPP's racist policies is not only what they give to their people, it's more what they don't give to others. Indian people got a right to get things from the government. They have a right. I don't grudge them for what they get from the government. And so my judgment on the PPP is not what they give to Indians, it's what they don't give to Black people and Amerindians. So when they make this thing that some or the other, you ain't like Indian people, and you want Indian people to get this and that, and want us to spend our time talking more about Indian people and neglect what is happening in the Black. That's the trap they want. So when we talk about class analysis, we put everybody together and say all the working class are being oppressed. Of course, all of the working class is being oppressed. We know that. But the Black working class getting shoot. The Black working class getting less opportunities. The Black working class is targeted for little. And you all are going to hear that from me until it stops. And you know my view. We're not begging, we're not crying, we're demanding, and we're not demanding to get more than others. We're demanding to get our fair share. And I am certain that when we get our fair share, you can come to me and let's talk about Marxist analysis. You know that too. I read Marx, but I ain't talking about Marx now. I'm talking about Garvey. I'm talking about Rodney. I'm talking about Guyana. I'm talking about Du Bois. I'm talking about Malcolm. I'm talking about Martin. I'm talking about Forbes. I'm talking about Eric Williams. I'm talking about capitalism and slavery. Eric Williams didn't say capitalism and Marxism. He said capitalism and slavery because it is slavery was the basis of capitalist accumulation. That's the point Eric Williams was making in that book. That we are talking about racial capitalism. Capitalism has its basis on Black dispossession. Black people who weren't paid for their wages. So the profit margin of the white capitalists was higher than normal because he didn't have to pay for labor. Imagine you got a business and you don't have to pay your workers. Oh God, you're going to the bank with your pocket full every day. So what they call capitalism is racial capitalism. And white Marxists not going to talk about that. It's Black Marxists who have to talk about that. All right. Tonight, I'm going to have Mark Benschop. And he is moderation boy. He already tell me, man, Doc, you're talking too long. I want to come in and talk. So I'm going to stop my talk. And good evening, Mr. Benschop.
Before I say good evening, your talk was excellent, but I just wanted your operator to know that I was backstage because I know sometimes when we do these shows and the topic is is delicious like cook up, because you know when you're knocking a pot of cook up or a plate of cook up, you don't care who's watching, and that's the purpose. That's exactly what you were doing there. So yes, your conversation was on point, and I was backstage just doing some nice dancing to the African drums, in tune with
Mark,
the drums.
Mark, you remember a boy used to be with us named Fitzralph?
Yeah, Fitzralph is somewhere in New Jersey now. He
Well,
is
in
originally from
Guyana.
Linden.
If a man come and stand up near to me at the rally, and he care for me all the time. I don't watch in men's face. I'm more likely to watch in a lady's face. But when me told me watch the boy, it's a Fitz. He was one of the soldiers with us.
Yes,
Yes,
I remember.
yes. Fitz, if you watching, big up boy, yeah, one of the soldiers who
Yeah,
have lead us.
he watches these shows. He was there with us in the struggle. He's originally from Linden, and he's somewhere in New Jersey or somewhere. So if he's watching, good evening to you, Fitz.
Yes, he was at the rally on Tuesday. Mark, how did you spend emancipation?
It was very quiet, in this part of the world. There's not emancipation celebration and so forth, but there were lots of other celebrations. And I watched you guys here in Guyana, and it was tremendous. It was beautiful. And oftentimes, I ask myself, especially during these times, emancipation celebration and so forth, the big question is, what is there for us to celebrate? That's from a political standpoint, because we know who the oppressors are. We know who the little boys are. We know who the little girls are that just don't give a damn about us as a people. But then something struck me. It could have been my great, great, great grandmother and her generation that came from Ghana, and they arrived in Guyana. They went to a beautiful village called Kildonan, and when they went to that village, it was basically nothing. They turned that village into something. So Kildonan village, the Campbells out there, the Pattersons and so forth, are the ones through my ancestors actually built that village. So in answering your question, how did I spend it? I spent the day reflecting on the contributions made by our African ancestors. And so I paid homage to that. Outside of that, politically, there was nothing to celebrate, especially in Guyana, where Africans are being oppressed, Africans are being discriminated against, and Africans are being treated like third class citizens under this installed regime.
Yeah, many observers said they felt a kind of electric this year emancipation. That people were much more political in terms of their expression of the condition of Black people. They were much more frontal with
Yeah.
it. Did you get that impression when you listened to some of the presentations?
A lot of them, and the crowds also. The fact that people went out in their numbers is an indication that they are not willing to sit down and accept this sort of bullyism by the PPP regime, the installed PPP regime. They're concerned, of course, the fact that even though that little boy talks about one Guyana, something that he stole from China with this one China campaign stuff. So he thinks that that sounds sweet. Whatever sounds sweet for him, he's going to run with it. But yes, people are more politically inclined. People went out in their numbers because they're conscious. They understand that they are being oppressed. They understand that they're being taken for granted, and the people are not going to have it any longer. They have said through their numbers, enough is enough. I think they went out there and they represented, and our ancestors will be proud to see that. However, it should be continued, not just one day, one afternoon, something. It should continue in terms of that numbers. And when the oppressors and their friends, some of their friends who love to write and so forth, sometimes nonsense. You did say earlier you didn't want to mention the name. Neither do I want to mention that name because I don't want to soil the program. The program is going really
Right,
nicely.
right, right.
Yeah.
But here is this person, and I want to get your take on it because this person is saying that Nigel Hughes and Nigel said that there can be no democracy without racial equality, and that Black people need to be at the table. I said, if we're not at the table, knock the damn feet off. And this person is saying, oh, Black people are not going to knock no table off, implying that black people are happy not being at the table. Your take.
I don't usually read. I don't read individual stuff. Of course, I saw the headline, and the headline for me was unacceptable in 2022 because if you're going to address our Indian brothers and sisters or any other ethnic group with respect, I think you should, show the same respect for persons of African descent. To put bold in the headline, black people, that individual is 10 times darker than a lot of persons of African descent. So if you're going to say black people, he might as well include himself, Moses Nagamutu, Ramjatan, everybody, Irfan Ali, Jack Day, because they're all black people too. But then again, that's another story. That individual, doesn't like when people like us, but he seems to be targeting you. Hence his reason for calling you all sort of derogatory names, black pudding man, and all these things. Nobody has called him Polari man, nobody's called him roti man or nothing like that. But he feels comfortable insulting leaders, African leaders, leaders who are talking to African Guyanese. He doesn't like that. He believes that he has what it takes to talk to African Guyanese, and he's the only one who can do that. And any other person who does that, he is against it. I sense a form of jealousy, a form of whatever else you want to call it. And so he's now saying that, hey, African Guyanese are not going to listen to people like a David Hinds, people like a Benschop, or any. They don't have time with them. Because remember, that is what he wants to tell his paymasters them now, that we are a waste of time, that they don't listen to us, and all these manner of things. But the truth of the matter is, more and more people are listening to us. They're listening to our shows. They're gravitating to the messages that we're sending out. They look forward for our programs. They ensure that they try to, in whatever ways that they can, contribute to keep our programs going. They do that. And then when they see that we're still here and we're getting bigger, we're getting better, it drives some sort of fear in them. So they get out in the corners and they sit down and they want to replicate. How do we get a talk show? How do we become as effective as a David Hinds, as a Sherrod Duncan, as a Burke, as a Benschop or others, or a Kadaki and so forth? How do we get like them? So they start their own little show, they talk to themselves, and then they become fascinated. Oh, I got 200 emails. We've been getting hundreds upon hundreds of emails. But those things, it impressed them. Oh, we got 40,000 people watching us. But we have had hundreds of thousands of people watching us. I don't know, Dr. Hinds, I think we have far better things to discuss. Your microphone. Your microphone. Yeah.
The reason I raise that is not to discuss is because it's replicated elsewhere. The feeling that black people are so stupid that we would not want to fight for our rights. And I think, to use a word that they use, subliminal, the subliminal is that we are daft. And I think it's very dangerous. It's very, because that is the racism that we have really to fight against. You see, let's move on to the rally on Tuesday. You looked at the rally, you saw the audience, you heard the messages. What are your initial views on what you saw and heard?
At the rally, the people, again, in what we have said earlier, the people are dying for a change in that country. The people are tired of being insulted. The people are tired of being treated as third-class citizens, or even worse. The people are tired of being deprived an opportunity to gain whatever others have been getting. The people are tired of they're tired of being oppressed. They're tired of being persecuted. All these manner of things. They are tired, and no matter what the little boy and his cohorts say that they are not, and that people are living in harmony, and that is not so. And the numbers that turn out, the folks that turn out there on the 2nd of August, I think it makes them tremble at this point in time. They didn't expect that. They expected that people were going to listen to them, that, oh, no, everybody's okay. Don't worry that Dr. Hinds or Kadaki or anybody else, the people are okay. They're not going to listen to these guys. They're not going to listen to us. But look at that number. If I were that little boy, I would have start a new plan as to how all Guyanese should be treated equally across the board. How some Guyanese should not be persecuted as they have been persecuting people from day one. And the crowd that I saw on the 2nd of August tells me a story that people are willing and ready to stand up, put on their boots, and fight, constitutionally fight for their rights. People are ready for that.
And people are ready to fight for their rights. One of the messages from the platform was that there will be no elections without a clean voters list.
Well, there should not have been an election without a clean voters list. A clean voters list would not have had the PPP in office today. And even with the elections in 2020, the PPP has rigged the elections, and so they're in office as a matter of rigging the elections. It is a fact. A bunch of thieves, that's who they are. The PPP stole the elections. So I agree with you, even with a clean voters list, we've got to still be careful of them wanting to rig the system. Remember, they are riggers. They've been there for all those years. They have rigged the elections. Elections upon elections, they have rigged. And I know in terms of the rigging of elections, they have made your friend, the late former president, Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, look like a schoolboy when it comes to rigging, because they have accused Burnham of rigging. But look who, look the evidence. In 1997, they should not have been in office as a result of the court's decision. Not me or you, Dr. Hinds, saying that. The court said that. The court vitiated the elections, albeit 4 years after. In 2006, the PPP stole a seat from the AFC. Not the PNC stole any seat. Not the PNC rigged the elections. The PPP stole a seat and gave it to Sam Hinds, who squatted in that seat for 5 years. In 2011, the PPP attempted to steal another seat. So the point I'm making, Dr. Hinds, is even as we fight for a clean voters list, they are in a corner planning to rig again. And so we've got to be conscious, we've got to be careful, and we've got to have a system in place to stop these vagabonds from rigging our elections and getting into office through questionable circumstances and use that opportunity to trample on the rights of African Guyanese. It has got to stop.
Mark, I want to take you back to that election because we hear from the PPP and their people that there was an attempt to rig the election, right? And then when we go on the other side and we look at the recount and what showed up from the recount, we saw actual rigging. So one side is saying there was an attempt to rig the election, and the other side has the evidence. GCOM has the evidence, the police has the evidence of actual rigging. So you have one side saying, you attempt to kill me, attempted murder. And the other side, but you kill me, brother. Mark Benschop.
That is why, look, it was all staged. The very things that they accuse Lowenfield of doing is what the other returning officers did, for example, in Region 3 and other regions, Region 6
Yes.
and so forth. The identical thing. But they didn't ball out rigging in Region 6 or rigging in Region 3 when that returning officer, Jack Dale, did what he did. And when the returning officer and the deputy returning officer from Region 6 did what they did. Is nothing compared to what Mr. Mingo, as they claim, did. Nothing at all. But because of the plan, they had a plan, a big plan, with some of the folks in the international community as to how they're going to ball out rig. Notice what they did. They all gathered up there at that set time. So they used that opportunity for Mr. Mingo to stop everything and say, rig. It was basically a diversion. But when we got into the recount process, we were like, wait a minute, wait a minute. Who really rigged these elections? Based on the evidence that we're seeing. We're now seeing the evidence. It's just like nighttime on the quarantine. You hear somebody yelling, thief man, thief man. And then you think is the usual suspect. But when they turn the light on, is not the person that they're yelling, thief, thief. They might holler, look, 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 a Rastaman, Rastaman thief, Rastaman come in the house, right? But when you actually got the evidence there, you take off the wig. It's not Rastaman. It's not the kind of man that we thought it was. It's the man, right? And the situation with the PPP, they ball out rigging, thinking people going to say, yes, it's the PNC or coalition. It's coalition trying to rig our elections, man. And the SOPs. But now we are talking about, we are seeing the evidence as to actually who rigged the elections. It is not the people that the PPP were balling out rigged the elections actually rigged the elections. It is not the PPP that balling out SOPs tampered with and all of these things actually tampered with the SOPs. And now, Dr. Hinds, I'll say this. If the PPP wants to show to the world and their supporters that the PNC actually rigged the elections, now is the time for them to do it. Yes. Let the elections petitions be heard. But they don't want the elections petitions to be heard. Guess why? Because when the evidence is presented in court, when all of the SOPs, including the SOPs of the coalition, when they are checked, when they are open as evidence in court, all of the PPP supporters and the world will see that it is the PPP who actually rigged the elections. And so they don't want the elections petitions to be heard. But guess what they want? They got back on the table at Rob Street or wherever, and they say, guess what we're going to do? We're going to try to ignore, we're going to try to stop all of the elections petitions. Hence their reason for appealing upon appealing. And they are going to create a commission of inquiry into the elections. And they're going to get their boys, they're going to pay 3 or 4 of their boys who will give them the result that they want. And they believe that's the end of the matter. So there's no purpose, according to the PPP, for any elections petition that will put them to shame.
And of course, they've charged Lowenfield, they've charged Miss Myers, they've charged Mingo, they've charged Lowenfield, they've charged Valda, they've charged people at GCOM, and they're not bringing these charges, they're not bringing the trials, because if you bring the trial, then Lowenfield will have to present his evidence, and he will present the evidence that he has. He will present all those people who vote when they were not in the country. He will present all the deaf people. He will present all the boxes. So they charge the people, bring them to trial.
And the fact every time, you're correct, Dr. Hyde, every time these folks, Mr. Mingo, Miss Myers, Mr. Lowenfield, and others, every time they go to court, the prosecution is not ready. Over 2 years now, you claim you have all the evidence against these people, and you're not ready? It is an injustice against those individuals who have been wrongly charged because they know that they have no evidence. What they did, they know that if they rush ahead to charge, then the perception would be that these people did something wrong. But if they did something wrong and you have the evidence, then you shouldn't have to be adjourning the matter over 2 years now. You cannot start the case because it is obvious you have no evidence against these people. When you call Lowenfield will present the facts, will present the evidence based on valid votes. He made a declaration on the elections based on valid votes. Not rigged votes by the PPP, not fraudulent votes by the PPP, not over 12 or 15,000 bad votes on a particular part of the east coast of Demerara, not spoiled ballots, not spoiled ballot boxes, not questionable documents mainly belonging to the PPP. All of those things will be presented. So the game is by these tricksters in the PPP is to prolong the matter. But I blame the magistrates. Here why. The magistrates sit there on every court appearance of these individuals, know that there is no evidence, know that the prosecutors are playing games, This matter should have been thrown out over a year ago.
Year ago.
No more time should be given to the prosecutors to prolong this matter. It is an injustice against Ms. Myers, Mr. Lowenfield, and Ms. Domingo and others.
Mark Benschop, as Lincoln Lewis is coming in, you were close to the action there in the United States. The two men were summoned by Washington to go to Washington. They tried to talk to the vice president. She called them and rebuked them. They talked to the Secretary of State. He rebuked them. They tried to get the Black Caucus to endorse the nonsense. They didn't. Put all of that in perspective for us.
It was a bad visit. It was a shame and a disgrace because they were summoned there. They were told to drop whatever they were doing to head to Washington, D.C. A lot of their supporters wouldn't want to agree. They think that it was a visit where they will sit down and drink coffee and eat polori and all manner of things, maybe black pudding and so forth. It wasn't that. It was to tell them the bad things that they were doing and what they should go back to Guyana to do so that all of the people will be properly served. And when they say all of the people, they mean because the people knew that the PPPC on the Irfan Ali, they were discriminating against mainly persons of African descent. And so, I mean, look, I'm told that the meeting, even before that phone call to Vice President Kamala Harris made, she knew exactly what was the deal. She knew it. It wasn't, and I'm sure what she really wanted to say to Irfan Ali, she probably didn't say it in so many words. And so she used diplomacy. They called out a government that was installed to Washington, D.C. to talk about their attitude towards their citizens. And that's exactly what it was
Repeat
about.
Repeat that, Mark.
They were called to Washington. They were summoned to Washington.
A government that they installed.
They called them to tell them what to do. End of story. Jack Deere, from his body language, didn't like that. We can see it. He didn't like it. This was above, way above the head of Irfan Ali. He was just sailing. He didn't know what he was saying. His speeches, his body language. You notice one other guy hollered that he got COVID and he never turned up to other meetings and so forth. They were running. It wasn't a successful meeting. So while they were in Washington, Anil Nandalal was greeted by some senior FBI operatives for the Caribbean to sit down to discuss security matters and the fact that the PPP weren't got to, at some point in time, very soon, hand over some of the drug lords and money launderers and gold smugglers and so forth who are connected to the PPP. But after that meeting, Anil came out and said, oh, I told them, the FBI, that they got to do something about those guys on social media that are creating problems, racial problems in Guyana. The FBI already know who are the ones creating racial problems and these things. I don't know. But I notice Comrade Lincoln Lewis is with us. I haven't seen him in a while. I stopped talking to show respect to Mr. Lincoln Lewis.
Comrade Lewis, good evening.
Good evening, David, Mark, and the viewers.
You were around the emancipation events over the weekend. You and I and brother Saul, we were in Belladrum Emancipation Day. You would have witnessed the rallies. Give us your take on that old weekend of activities. What's your take on what you saw, what you heard?
What I've seen over the weekend is really for emancipation primarily. There's so many young people who are coming out to celebrate emancipation in their own way. I believe it's an opportunity for not only the organizers, but the Black community in general, the African community in general, to get together and to analyze and to see how we can build programs that can capture their imagination and keep them informed and in contact with the problems of the Black community, the African community in this country. I'm encouraged. I was at I looked at the crowd at Belladrum. That crowd, they were primarily young people in there. When I look at how the not only the participation, their involvement, and I look at how they were very attentive in receiving the messages that they delivered at the ceremony there. It's indicative that we have another generation to take over from many of us when we have left the leadership in the Black community, the African community.
Any thoughts on the rally?
I'm encouraged about the yes, I believe that the rally coming immediately after all these activities for emancipation, it attracted a very decent audience. I believe people, as I walked around, I was there. I walked around and I was talking with a number of the people who are out there. I get the very clear impression that their interests lie in a better Guyana. The common thread that has been coming through is the question of how they feel about the issue of discrimination in this country. And I believe it's something that the government need to take note of. As one person said to me, I went today to collect my book voucher for 3 of my kids. One lady said that to me. She said, I collected it. She said, but if they believe that they're going to bribe me with voucher once, now the grant for the children, right? If they believe that they're going to bribe me with one grant a year, she said that money that I've collected, that is a small drop in the ocean of the problem that I have. And we went on to talk, and she said, I saw ad on the paper, on the news, she said she saw ad on the television where they put a child to say, parents, do not take our money, don't take the money and pay rent and utility bills and so on. He said, what the hell they expect us to do when I am working for $83,000 a month? I have 3 children, and I will wait when the year comes, when they pay this money just to buy things for my children. She said, I got to buy because I know who to give and who they will give it to. So I am telling you this for you to understand the views of people out there when it comes to the issue that confront the society. I was encouraged with I believe the messages, we had some good messages that came through that resonate with people who are around. And even today, I was at the border market, and the lady, one of the vendors, she's singling out those who she felt left good messages with her. So people are paying attention. I asked her if you were at the rally. She said at the meeting or rally, we want to call it. She said, I wasn't there, but I was listening it. So people have an interest, and
and I think
this
that
should be the beginning.
Point. I mean, the thousands of people. About 2 days ago, I looked at the rally, the live tape of the rally, and it had about 80-something thousand views. And that's just on one page. Who looked at that rally. So quite apart from the 5,000 or so who were there, Mark Benschop, it's the hundreds, the tens of thousands who viewed it electronically. I mean, the age of technology now has taken this thing to a next level. And when I walked along the crowd, the emotions that were there, the vibes that you got, you know, and the comments that you got online really showed, as Lincoln said, that people are turned on. Backbencher.
Yes, indeed, I agree with Lincoln. People are turned on, and they're not just turned on; they're more than turned on. They're fed up with what they're seeing there in Guyana. They're fed up with the handouts. They're fed up with being treated worse than third-class citizen. We have seen the signs since the first set of cash grants. They call it COVID cash grants. Thousands of people are still waiting on their pink slip. We have discussed this on so many occasions. The regime has ignored those thousands of people. They went on with other cash grants and ignore the very set of people that we saw out there in their numbers. And, I agree with Lincoln. I agree with you and others. People are fed up. And the numbers, you have spoken about the numbers. I have seen numbers of over 85, 100 plus thousand people viewing it online. Those are numbers that people got to talk about, not little wishy-washy 40,000 and 200 emails and them trash that. We see real numbers here. And when they see the real numbers, they become jittery. Watch out for them becoming very personal and so forth, because they don't like what they see. They don't like the togetherness. They think this fake thing about one Guyana, and they think that because Irfan Ali goes on stage and he did a Antabanta, made himself a comic, the usual comic that he is, dancing out a tune to drums. I don't know, since some people dance to drums like this, unless you're getting Antabanta or Malibonta bite you somewhere, you know what I mean? So they don't like the crowd. They don't. So watch out. They're going to change their narratives. They're going to try to probably put a few other people to counter us and so forth. But it's not going to work. It is not. Our strength is stronger, 10 times stronger than them. So no matter what they do, no matter what comics they put together, what kunumunus they put together to have their own shows, it is not going to work at all, because the people already see the truth, they know the truth, and they understand who the oppressors are. And they understand who have joined with the oppressors to oppress us, whether by way of writing or by way of their so-called shows. People know who those oppressors and their friends are.
Lincoln and Denmark, one of the things, there were a couple of things that people pointed out to me as I walked the crowd. And one of the things that people seemed to be very upbeat about was what they call the unity of the parties and the leaders. Sometimes we take that for granted. We don't understand how oppressed our people are when they have to deal with the oppressors and then deal with divisions in our ranks. And a lot of people, one lady pulled me and she put her mouth in my ears and she said, "Don't you ever walk away again." She was very stern. Your take on that, Lincoln, and then Mark, the notion of unity. Lincoln?
Let me tell you that people are looking for, you got to understand the constituency that you're dealing with. Those people were there. Those are the people who believe in unity among the groups and unity of purpose. They believe in coalition politics and so forth. I listened to, there are people who talked to me in the night. They said, "Are you not speaking?" I said, "No, I am not listed to speak. I am not listed to speak." What they're expecting to see the people who have been standing up against the PPP atrocities over the years, to be holding hands now once again and fight together to repel this machinery. I believe that I strongly believe that people are encouraged about what they saw the night. I've spoken with a number of persons. They are encouraged about the platform that was there. I believe that this platform need to be intensified, the program. I believe that we need as a people to zero in more intense on our messages, because what you have there and what you have on social media put together is something to be worried about. What we have to do, the PPP government has all the media houses except Channel 9, radio and television,
67.
Benschop Radio, 67, Village Voice. Well, they don't have those. Yeah, you have a number of agencies that are taking a very strident position in holding people accountable. They have done it when the coalition was in government, and they are doing it now very intensely. I believe that it is a good thing that we have these media houses. If not, the government would have been more intense in abusing the state media and those other media houses that they can throw a dollar to satisfy. It's a good thing that we do have social media. If not, they would have continued to tell the nation that they have had dinner with the Black Caucus, right, in the United States, if they had that opportunity.
Mark Benschop,
so keep it up, David. You and your colleagues who were there, you guys keep it up, intensify the struggle. You have the support of the people outside there.
Mark?
Yes, I agree. And usually when Lincoln speaks, I don't like to counter anything, and there's nothing to counter other than to say that I agree 100% with what he has said there. Had it not been for programs like these, whether it's Politics 101 or whether it's Lincoln writing in the Village Voice or the Village Voice itself or other platforms, Kadaki, Sherrod Duncan, Rickford Burke, or others. I think over the past 2 years, it is shows like these, things that we have been doing in social media, we're able to keep the PPP in check and to expose to a large extent the PPP. And hence the reason why people saw us as actually the opposition. And this is no disrespect to the opposition. They have opposition members doing their shows and so forth and so on. But the fight back, the real fight back came from us on social media. That's where the real fight back against the PPP came. So I say kudos to all of us who were able to make this possible and able to say to the people, say to the support base, look, don't give up. Don't give up either on the leadership, don't give up on individuals, just don't give up. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And over the years, over 2 years, going in 3 years, we were able to maintain that support base. Maybe that's why the people went out in their numbers yesterday and said, look, we've got to do something. Something is wrong. We've got to do it. Lincoln has mentioned the few media houses. You got 107.1 FM in Guyana, which is Benschop Radio. You have Channel 9, radio and TV. You have Channel 67, that's Halagala. And you have the Village Voice and so forth. Those are media houses on the ground in Guyana. We do not receive a cent, and I can speak for Benschop Radio. For almost 3 years, we received not a single cent in ads from the install regime, nothing at all. And I say this to say, because I don't really give a damn about that anyways, because the show will continue, the message will continue. I say this to say that they cannot beat us as a group of individuals on social media. Be it you, Dr. Hinds, whenever Lincoln comes on, or a Sherrod, or a Burke, or a Kadaki, they just cannot beat us, even though they are spending hundreds of millions of taxpayers' money into those other shows that they do. Hundreds of millions of dollars. They just cannot beat us, and they wouldn't able to beat us at all, no matter how much they try to suppress us or oppress us or persecute us or to deprive us of any form of economic through ads and these sort of things. It is not going to work. They're afraid of us. That's all I wish to say.
Mark Benschop there and Lincoln Lewis talking tonight about what occurred over the weekend, Emancipation Weekend. Of course, I want to thank all of you who I met in person. You know, you see names here on the in the comment section, and then you meet people in person, and it's such a wonderful feeling. Lincoln, closing thoughts, and then Mark.
I want to encourage the audience and the supporters of these political parties to remain and work with the political grouping, be the WPA, the AFC, PNC, or who. You need to stay focused. You need to stay together. I want to implore upon you. No struggle that will be won overnight. It has to be a continuous process where you work in hammering these people, hammering the message. I'm sure about one thing, that they are beginning to run scared to the point where the president, I observe, has been attacking one of the congressmen over the weekend. They see the African community as strategic. The African community, the African leaders in the United States, if they give them an endorsement, that would mean that they will be getting support to carry out their dastardly act here. And we need to understand that those people, Burke and others, Mark and so forth, who are in the United States, who have been able to get to these men and get the men and women and get the message to them, I want to say to them, they have done a commendable job, the whole team that was involved in it. You know, thanks very much. And the only way we can succeed is that each and one of us who are leaders, we need to throw up our own tent, do our own thing, making sure that the objective is a focused one, where we can stop the discrimination. We must have a seat at the table, and we must be able to get the share of the pie, as David put it. The money from oil is payment that they owe, is pay that they owe our ancestors. Time to fight on. Thank you, David, for inviting me. Thank you, Mark, for sharing this platform with me. Thank to the viewers for taking time out and come and make this program lively as it is. Good night.
Mark?
Yeah, but thank you, Lincoln, for all that you do and all that you continue to do for Guyana, to make Guyana a peaceful place. I recall many years ago, Lincoln mentioned the term economic genocide. A lot of people call him all manner of things. Today, we're living to see that Lincoln Lewis is correct. The PPP is practicing economic genocide against persons of African descent. You are correct. Lincoln said that Irfan Ali, to date, I am yet to address him how he wants people to address him, but I am uncomfortable uh, addressing him as the president, when in fact I know that based on the evidence that we're seeing out there about an election, I'm uncomfortable addressing him as president, just like I'm uncomfortable as addressing him as a doctor because of his academic credentials being questionable. The elections are questionable. We know that they have been installed. We know that he is there under questionable circumstances. And so I am very reluctant, and you will probably never hear me addressing him as president until we have this entire elections fiasco over, until we have our elections petitions be heard, and until we know the true winner of the elections. Because at the end of the day, people want to hear the truth. I have seen some of the comments of folks in the comment section talking about we're the SOPs. We have gone past the stage of the SOPs. The PPP has control of all of the SOPs, including theirs. And to their supporters, I repeat, I don't know if this is like, it's like the ears hard. They're not listening. That we have gone past the stage of the SOPs. Stop asking coalition people to show their SOPs and ask your leaders or whatever they are in the PPP to stop blocking the election petitions from being heard. Let us hear, let us get on with the elections petitions. Let us see all of the SOPs. And if at the end of the day, the coalition did something wrong, we will see it. Or the PPP did something wrong, we will see it. But oh man, the PPP doesn't want the elections petitions because they know that they have rigged the elections. Now, Irfan Ali is going to dance around, bounce around, out of tune. He's going to talk about some man not wanting to meet him. Why does it bother him that Hakeem Jeffries, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, find it uncomfortable sitting at the same table with Irfan Ali because of the evidence in Guyana that he's oppressing, he's persecuting persons of African descent. We agree with Congressman Hakeem Jeffries in not meeting, and all of the other congressmen and women who refused to meet with Irfan Ali. It wasn't just Hakeem Jeffries, there was others. I know of others, there's no need to call their names now, that didn't want to meet with Irfan Ali. But he singled out Hakeem Jeffries because maybe he and Jack Day have. Anyways, let me not go that route. Let me. Right. But that's the sort of infantile politics we're seeing in Guyana by that little boy, Irfan Ali. Now he runs around crying and begging the leader of the opposition to shake his hands now. So that becomes another issue. You know, and why shake a hand with Irfan to satisfy Irfan and his group? To see a picture of Aubrey shaking their hand. That is what these guys go about. They play nursery school politics. And Aubrey Norton is correct. He is not prepared. And his supporters, the supporters of the coalition, majority of the supporters of the coalition will be upset if Aubrey Norton shakes the hands of Irfan Ali at this point in time. They will be upset about that. So we don't want to see that at all. But all in all, continue the good work you guys are doing on your platform, David, and to all of your listeners. Thank you all so much for your continued support. We see one and two of the trend crap who's going to raise, the bumps raising, the truth hurts, and so the bumps are going to raise. But David, before you go, the woman who whispered in your ear, was that Rhonda Lane?
No, not Rhonda.
You're not Rhonda.
Rhonda wouldn't whisper. Rhonda would tell me Brad Harry in front of everybody. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much, Lincoln, for coming on tonight. And Mark, I think I'll see you tomorrow night.
Yep, tomorrow night on Straight Up 9 o'clock. Thank you so much, Dr. Hinds. I like your T-shirt, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to you, the audience, as usual, I love you. You guys keep us going. We keep you going. And tomorrow night, Politics 101 is not going to be on. It's Friday night, so I'll be on with Mark. Have yourselves a good evening and a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you all back here on Tuesday evening. Good night, goodbye, and remember, as always,